Australian wineries are expected to crush more than 1.5 million tonnes of grapes during this year's vintage, but growers say they're having trouble processing their crop because it's ripening too quickly. Researchers are blaming climate change, with warmer conditions and drier soils accelerating the ripening process. Celise Gibson filed this report from Renmark in South Australia.
Vintage is in full swing in South Australia's Riverland, 3 hours northeast of Adelaide. The region's peak wine body, Riverland Wine, is expecting local growers to produce up to 400,000 tonnes of wine grapes this year, or around 30% of Australia's total crush. But Executive Officer Chris Byrne says growers are rushing to get their wine grapes off the vines while the fruit is still good, with the bulk of the region's grapes maturing at the same time.
We are witnessing some ups and downs with Beaumays, but by and large, most fruit is now approaching or has exceeded its Beaumay target. And so I think wineries are going flat out to try and take in as much of the fruit as they can while it's still in good condition.
CSIRO researcher Leanne Webb says temperature, soil moisture and crop load have a direct impact on the ripening process.
What we found was all those three drivers were affecting the timing of the ripening. So warmer conditions assist with early ripening, drier soils and also lower crop load.
Dr Christopher Davies is a scientist with the CSIRO and is investigating the hormonal and genetic control of grape ripening. He says early ripening is becoming a huge problem for growers and wineries.
Instead of having ripening and harvest spread out over a longer period, it's now quite a short period. And so we're seeing wineries with big problems of scheduling intake, having to harvest stuff too early, having to harvest stuff too late, because they just haven't got the capacity, either manpower or the infrastructure to manage such compressed seasons.
Is there any way that you're looking at being able to slow the process so that there is less rush on wineries?
What we've been concentrating on is delaying the onset of ripening. So we know now from our research that these things are called plant growth regulators, which are small molecules which control lots of different aspects of plant growth. They are responsible, or at least keys in controlling ripening. And there's one group in particular called auxins, which are involved in plant growth. But auxins also seem to control the onset of ripening. So if you have higher levels of auxin in the berries, it'll delay ripening. If you get rid of the auxins, it'll make ripening happen earlier.
Dr Davies says the next step will be to apply the research in commercial trials. He hopes the technology will eventually be made available to growers to give them more control over the onset of ripening.
I think the potential's there. Clearly we can delay ripening, and for example, if you had a large block of Shiraz or whatever and you couldn't manage it all at once, then in theory you could treat half of your block, delay ripening by 1 or 2 weeks and get that extra leeway. So then you could, when your first block of material came in, you'd know that in a week or 2 weeks you'd have the next half to come in. So you could actually plan exactly for when that was going to happen.
Dr Christopher Davies ending that report from Celise Gibson in Renmark.